Happy Monday, everyone. And you know what today is. It is Monday, and on Mondays, all roads lead to book club. And so I'm super excited to be here with you all. I am on live on TikTok, as well as we're live on YouTube. And y'all give me a thumbs up on TikTok if you can hear me. Y'all give me a thumbs up on YouTube if you can hear me. I'm telling you now, I already know that this book is kicking our butt. Literally the introduction and the first few pages of the first chapter is kicking our butts, but I'm here for it. I'm here for it because what I know is that we are never ever going to grow and be all that we desire to be unless we be stretched. So is there anybody that's ready to be stretched with me? Now, let me tell you why I am so fond of book club, right? Why am I so fond of book club? I am fond of book club because we are never, ever going to earn, E-A-R-N, earn more than we learn. I am so fond of book club because you cannot pour from an empty cup. All right. You cannot pour from an empty cup. And why am I so excited about book club beyond the fact that you can be here with me, right? I am so fond of book club because leaders are readers. I'm sorry, I got a little distracted. I just had to make sure this other mic was on. Leaders are readers. And so let me know if this is your first time here on book club with me. We want to go ahead and celebrate you if this is your first time. If you're here every single week for this beat down that we get right through this personal development, you are a true warrior and a true champion. And what I want you to do is, can you face that a little bit? Turn that back towards me when you get a chance. Okay. What I want you to do, you guys, is I want you to celebrate yourself right now. If you are with me every single week, I want you to celebrate yourself right now. And if it's your first time being here, celebrate yourself. And TikTok, I need you guys to let me know where you are logging in from, what city, what state, and or what country. Now, we're reading The Mountain Is You by Brianna Weist. And we got a super duper breakdown, smackdown. Like literally, I'm not a wrestling fan, but my family is. Okay, they are. Paul and Paige watched WrestleMania on Saturday and yesterday, right? All weekend long, right? And then Friday night was, what was Friday night? SmackDown or something like that. Okay. Last night, a couple of people, what's his name? Got his butt kicked. The reigning champion, Roman Reigns, was dethroned last night by none other than okay, so we've been getting our butts kicked like Roman Reigns got his butt kicked last night on WrestleMania in Philadelphia, and we happen to be from Philadelphia. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started, you guys. This book is about self-sabotage, and we believe that by the time that we get to the end of this book, we're going to become a better version of ourselves. All right. So this book is about self-sabotage, why we do it, when we do it, and how to stop doing it for good. Is there anybody that could get excited about recognizing why we do it, when we do it, and how to stop this self-sabotage? TikTok, if you can get excited about us stopping this self-sabotage, I want you to tap that screen for me over there, right? Tap that screen. Now, as you guys are logging on, I need every single one of you, especially those of you on TikTok and YouTube. What I need you to do is hashtag booktube, hashtag Goodreads, and hashtag booktalk for me. Would you do those things for me? Hashtag booktube, hashtag Goodreads, and hashtag booktalk. Now, we're going to go ahead and get started. Self-sabotage comes from belief systems. All right. self-sabotage comes from belief systems. But before we get started, I want to define the word sabotage. All right? Let's define the word sabotage. Let's define that word. What's the definition of sabotage? All right? Because I think it's very, very important that we understand the words that we're actually reading and not just what we think they mean. All right? So sabotage means to deliberately destroy, damage, or obstruct something, especially for political or military advantage. The action of sabotaging something. So it is to deliberately destroy or damage. So imagine that. Self-sabotage means that you're deliberately destroying or damaging yourself. Now, here's what's so crazy, Letitia. Oh, she loves books and loves reading. If someone was to call you out your name or swing at you or do something to affect your physical being or your household or something like that, we would be freaking out. Yet, self-sabotage is deliberately destroying or damaging ourselves. Deliberately. Like, not like we accidentally do it, but we set out to cause damage to ourselves. So self-sabotage comes from our belief system. What you believe about your life is what you will make true about your life, says the book. What you believe about your life is what you will make true about your life. That's why it's so crucial to be aware of these outdated narratives and have the courage to change them. Like we are 2 sentences in to the book today and already got a jab, uppercut. It's okay. We're in this together. Our toes are going to hurt at the end of this. Our gut is going to hurt at the end of this. We might have a couple of black eyes, right? A busted lip. We might look like Martin. Or like Will Smith when he had the allergic reaction in the movie, but it's going to be all right. We're going to be all right. Okay. We're going to be all right. Let me make sure that we don't look crazy on camera. Okay. What you believe about your life is what you will make true about your life. That's why it's so crucial to be aware of these outdated narratives and have the courage to change them. Maybe you have gone through the majority of your life believing that a standard of $50K per year at a decent company is the most that you'll ever be capable of. Maybe you've spent so many years telling yourself, I am an anxious person. You started to actually identify with it, adopting anxiety and fear into your belief system about who you fundamentally are. Maybe you were raised in a closed-minded social circle or an echo chamber. Maybe you did not know that you could question or arrive at new conclusions about politics or religion. Maybe you never thought that you were somebody who could have great style, feel content, or travel the world. In other case, your limiting beliefs might come from wanting to keep yourself safe. Oh, maybe that's why you prefer the comfort of what you've known to the vulnerability of what you don't. Why you prefer apathy to excitement. Think that suffering makes you more worthy, or believe that for every good thing in life, there must also be an accompanying bad. I'm sorry, not sorry. Sorry, not sorry. Because this is fire. To truly heal, YouTube, TikTok, you are going to have to change the ways that you think. You're going to have to become very conscious of negative and false beliefs and start shifting to a mindset that actually serves you. How to get out of denial. Denial. Maybe this preliminary information about self-sabotage resonates a bit, or maybe it resonates a lot. Either way, if you are here because you truly want to change your life, you're going to have to stop being in denial about your personal state of affairs. You are going to have to get real with yourself. That is so crazy. Y'all, I promise you, my hand to God, that I did not go ahead of you to read this book. I promise you that I decided that I would go through this book with you so that we'll have real reactions to what the book is saying. But I promise you that my live this morning said, go look in the mirror. Who are you? And if you were on my live this morning, then you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is exactly what I said this morning while I was in the gym. Either way, if you are here because you truly want to change your life, you're going to have to stop being in denial about your personal state of affairs. You're going to have to get real with yourself. You're going to have to decide that you love yourself too much to stop settling for less than what you really deserve. If you think that you could be doing better in life, you might be right. If you think that there is more that you are here to accomplish, you might be right. It does not serve us to use endless affirmations to placate our true feelings about where we are in our journey. When we do this, we start disassociating and we get stuck. In an effort to love ourselves, we try to validate everything about who we are. Yet those warm sentiments never quite seem to stick, only ever temporarily numbing the discomfort. Woo! Why don't they work? Because deep down, we know that we are not quite being who we want to be. And until we accept this, we are never going to find peace. Which is why, as we said last week, so many people keep running back to that place that's comfortable. You know why? Because in that place that's comfortable, we're already ahead of most of the people that are in that circle. It is this new arena that you're trying to be in now that you are not the HNIC. And because you are not the HNIC and you kind of like started from the bottom now, right? Now you're down, back down as like the person that's just getting started. But in this other arena, you're like elevated in this other arena where you've already hit the ceiling, you've maxed out. Which is why it's so uncomfortable there, even though it's comfortable there. So it's comfortable there, and you keep going back to that place because it's comfortable there because you're celebrated here. Because in that arena, you're here. So you're celebrated a very different way there. And in this other arena where you're learning new skill sets, becoming a new version of yourself, it doesn't feel as good, TikTok. It doesn't feel as good, YouTube. And because it doesn't feel as good, you run back to that place where you could be who you used to be because you're celebrated there because you're here, even though it's uncomfortable because you've hit the law of the lid. You've already hit the law of the lid. Nothing else can go in you in that place because there's nothing in that place that's even challenging you. I don't even remember where I was. If you think that you could be, okay, where are we at? When we are in denial, okay, not there. In an effort, it does not serve us to use endless affirmations. When we do this, we start disassociating and get stuck. In an effort to love ourselves, we try to validate everything about who we are. Yet, those warm sentiments never quite seem to stick, only ever temporarily numbing the discomfort, why don't they work? Because deep down, we know that we are not quite being who we want to be. And until we accept this, we are never going to find peace. When we are in denial, we tend to go into blame mode. We look for anyone or anything to explain why we are the way we are. Well, I mean, and most people say this craziness right here. Well, that's just the way I do things. Huh. Well, that's the way I always did things. Well, how's that working out for you? Because the way I used to do things and the way I always do things have yet to yield me the results that I say that I want. We go into blame mode. We look for anything or anyone to explain why we are the way we are. Then we just start justifying. If you have to constantly, on a near daily basis, rationalize why you're unhappy about your life, you're not doing yourself any favors. You are not getting any closer to creating the lasting change that you so deeply desire. The first step in healing anything is taking full accountability. It is no longer being in denial about the honest truth about your life and yourself. It does not matter what your life looks like on the outside. It is how you feel about it on the inside. It is not okay to be constantly stressed, panicked, and unhappy. Something is wrong. And the longer that you try to love yourself out of realizing this, the longer that you're going to suffer. Deborah said, it's not even comfortable there anymore. It's just less uncomfortable. There you go. That is powerful. It's not even comfortable there anymore. It's just less uncomfortable for where you've got to go. Can I get a whoop whoop? Can I get a whoop whoop on TikTok? Can I get a whoop whoop on YouTube? That's a great place for a woo-saw, right? Take a deep breath. The greatest act of self-love is to no longer accept a life that you are unhappy with. It is to be able to state the problem plainly and in a straightforward manner. That is precisely what you need to do to continue truly uprooting your life and transforming it. It is the first step toward real change. Take a piece of paper and a pen and write down everything that you aren't happy with. Write down very specifically every single problem that you face. If you are struggling with finances, you need a very clear picture of what's wrong. Write down every debt, every bill, every asset, and every bit of income. If you are struggling with self-image, write down exactly what you dislike about yourself. If it is anxiety, write down everything that bothers or upsets you. You must first and foremost get out of denial and into clarity about what's really wrong. At this point, you have a choice. You can make peace or you can commit to changing. The lingering is what is keeping you stuck. Let me say it again. You can make peace or you can commit to changing. The lingering is what is keeping you stuck. You know, there's a good book that I read that talks about being lukewarm, like 1 foot in and 1 foot out. Lukewarm. The God I serve, he don't do lukewarm. And could it be that you don't have what you really want because you're right there straddling the fence? 1 foot in, 1 foot out. The lingering is what is keeping you stuck. So the path begins right now where you are. If you know that change needs to be made in your life, it is okay if you are far away from your goal or if you cannot even yet conceive how you will arrive. See, that's the problem. We think that we have to know how we're going to arrive. All we got to do is decide. And once you decide, all the rest will begin to get flesh on it. Just decide. Really decide, right? It is okay if you are starting at the beginning. It is okay if you are at rock bottom and cannot see your way through. It is okay if you are at the foot of your mountain and have failed every time that you've tried to overcome it. Rock bottom is very often where we begin our healing journey. This is not because we suddenly see the light, not because our worst days are magically transmuted into some type of epiphany, and not because someone saves us from our own madness. Rock bottom becomes a turning point because it is only at that point that most people think, I never want to feel this way again. That thought is not just an idea. It is a declaration and a resolution. It is one of the most life-changing things that you can ever experience. It becomes the foundation upon which you build everything else. When you decide you truly do not want to ever feel a certain way again, you set out on a journey of self-awareness, learning, and growth that has you radically reinvent who you are. In that moment, fault becomes irrelevant. You're no longer mulling over who did what or how you've been wronged. In that moment, only one thing guides you, and it is this: that no matter what it takes, I will never accept my life getting to this point again. You know, when I got to that point, you guys, that is when I realized, when I was dealing with my health, when I was dealing with being 300 pounds, when I was dealing with not really liking what I was seeing in the mirror, when I was dealing with, the obesity, the not wanting to live, the thinking that I didn't matter, when I was dealing with the depression and all those things. When I got to the point where I said, I will never accept my life getting to this point again, that is when I started to see massive change in my life. And I keep reminding myself, like, who are you? I said it this morning. Because I will never accept my life getting to this point again. I will never go back to being 300 pounds, 250 pounds, 225 pounds, 200 pounds, 175, 150. I'm not going back. Rock bottom isn't a bad day. It doesn't happen by chance. We only arrive at rock bottom when our habits begin to compound upon one another, when our coping mechanisms have spiraled so out of control that we can no longer resist the feelings we were attempting to hide. Rock bottom is when we are finally faced with ourselves. When everything has gone so wrong, we are left to realize that there is only one common denominator through it all: that we must heal and that we must change. We must choose to turn around so that we will never feel this way again. When we have a down day, we don't think, I never want to feel this way again. Why? Because it is not fun, but it's also not unbearable. Mostly, though, we are somewhat aware that small failures are a regular part of life. We are imperfect, but trying our best, and that vague discomfort will pass eventually. We don't reach a breaking point because one or two things go wrong. We reach a breaking point when we finally accept that the problem isn't how the world is, it is how we are. Woo, woo. This is a beautiful reckoning to have. Ayodeji Awosika describes his own like this: you must find the purest form of being fed up. Make it hurt. I literally screamed that I'm not going to live like this anymore, even though there's some other flowery words in here. Make it hurt. I literally screamed, I'm not going to live like this anymore. Again, make it hurt. Scream if you have to. I am not going to live like this anymore. Draw a line in the sand and said it stops right here. Human beings are guided by comfort. They stay close to what feels familiar and they reject what doesn't, even if it's objectively better for them. Buy this as it is. Be this as it is. Most people do not actually change their lives until not changing becomes the less comfortable option. This means that they do not actually embrace the difficulty of altering their habits until they simply do not have another choice. Staying where they are is not viable. They can no longer even pretend that it is desirable in any way. They are quite honestly less at rock bottom and more stuck between a rock that's impinging on them and an arduous climb out from beneath it. If you really want to change your life, let yourself be consumed with rage, not towards others, not with the world, but within yourself. Get angry, determined, and allow yourself to develop tunnel vision with one thing and one thing only at the end, that you will not go on as you are. Going to live like this anymore. Stop going back for the beatings. Stop going back for the verbal beatings. Stop going back for it. It's like you keep running back to it. In the moment that the verbal beatings stop, then you feel like it's okay until the next time. As a matter of fact, you can't even go to anybody crying about it anymore because you keep running back to the verbal beatings. This says, stop it already. Stop it already. If you really want to change your life, let yourself be consumed with rage, not towards others, not toward the world, but within yourself. Get angry. So as we're preparing for radical change, one of the biggest reasons that people avoid doing the important internal work is that they recognize that if they heal themselves, their lives will change, sometimes drastically. If they come to terms with how unhappy they are, it means that they will have to temporarily be more uncomfortable, ashamed, or scared while they start all over. Let's be clear about something. To put an end to your self-sabotaging behavior absolutely means that change is on the horizon. Your new life is going to cost you your old one. Now that's a bar. Your new life is going to cost you your old one. Bars. Your new life is going to cost you your old one. It's going to cost you your comfort zone and your sense of direction. It's going to cost you relationships and friends. It's going to cost you being liked and understood. It doesn't matter. See, y'all, my new life cost me a lot of friends. My new life cost me everything in life as I knew it before. The people who are meant for you are going to meet you on the other side. You're going to build a new comfort zone around the things that actually move you forward. Instead of being liked, you're going to be loved. You know what? I wish she had to put instead of being tolerated. You're going to be loved. Instead of being understood, you're going to be seen. All you're going to lose is what was built for a person that you no longer are. Oh my goodness. Remaining attached to your old life is the first and final act of self-sabotage. And releasing it is what we must prepare for to truly be willing to see a real change. I think that we should take a moment of silence for the old us I think we need to take a moment of silence. Like that whole chapter will preach. Okay? And I'm not a preacher. I'm just a teacher. But that whole chapter will preach. And I think we need just like a deep breath, because that was heavy. That was heavy. All you're going to lose is what was built for a person that you no longer are. Let me see some hand claps on TikTok. Let me see some deep breaths on YouTube. Let me see those hands. Let me see those hands. Let me see those hands. Let me see them. TikTok, let me see you tap that screen, because I know that this is a whoo. Okay. Chapter 2. There's no such thing as self-sabotage. When you habituate yourself to do things that move your life forward, you call them skills. When they hold your life back, you call them self-sabotage. They are both essentially the same function. Sometimes it happens by accident. Sometimes we just get used to living a certain way and fail to have a vision for how life could be different. Sometimes we make choices because we don't know how to make better ones or that anything is even possible. Sometimes we settle for what we're handed because we don't know we can ask for more. Sometimes we run our lives on autopilot for long enough that we begin to think that we no longer have a choice. However, most of the time, it's not accidental at all. The habits and the behaviors you can't stop engaging in, no matter how destructive or limiting they may be, are intelligently designed by your subconscious to meet unfulfilled need, to meet an unfulfilled need, a displaced emotion, or a neglected desire. So we keep running back to that familiar place because Sharice Dancy, Sharon Durr, Bridget Jackson, Deborah Moore, Robin Krim, Michelle Jackson, Christina Merriweather. Because, first of all, our lives are on autopilot. Secondly, because our subconscious needs to meet an unfulfilled need, a displaced emotion, or a neglected desire. We keep staying stuck because this need that we have to be needed in that way. And see, on this side over here, where your new life is awaiting you, they don't need you the same way as they need you over here. I'm gonna go ahead and click the next page. Overcoming self-sabotage is not about trying to figure out how to override your impulses. It is first determining why those impulses exist in the first place. Self-sabotage is often misunderstood to be a way in which we punish, deride, or intentionally hurt ourselves. On the surface, this seems true enough, that self-sabotage is committing to a healthier diet and finding yourself pulling up to the drive-thru a few hours later. It's identifying a market gap, conceiving an unprecedentedly brilliant business idea, then getting distracted and forgetting to begin working on it. It's having strange and terrifying thoughts and allowing them to paralyze you in the face of important life changes or milestones. It is knowing you have so much to be grateful for and excited about, and yet worrying anyway. We often misattribute these behaviors to a lack of intelligence, willpower, or capability. That is usually not the case. Self-sabotage is not a way that we hurt ourselves. It's a way we try to protect ourselves. See, because over here, this place over here, that hurts me over here. But I'm used to that hurt. They do that all the time. This over here, this some new hurt. And this kind of hurt, this kind of ouch, as I'm stretching and I'm growing. I don't really know what that feels like. I don't really know those people over there. I don't really know none of that. So you know what? Let me just keep letting them treat me real bad over here because I'm used to that. Oh my gosh. This is familiar pain. Eh, you know, it'll be back to normal in about a week. So I'm all right. I'm okay because I'm used to this pain over here. What is self-sabotage? Self-sabotage is when you have two conflicting desires. Oh my gosh. I ain't know what was coming, y'all. One is conscious and one is unconscious. You know how you want to move forward, move your life forward, and yet you are still, for some reason, you're stuck. When you have big, ongoing, insurmountable issues in your life, especially when the solutions seem so simple, so easy, and yet so impossible to stick with, what you have are not big problems, but they're big attachments. What you have are not big problems, they're big attachments. People are pretty incredible in the fact that they basically do whatever they want to do. This is true of everything in human life. Regardless of the potential of the consequences, human nature has revealed itself to be incredibly self-serving. People have an almost superhuman way of doing whatever they feel compelled to do, regardless of whom it could hurt, what wars it could spawn, or what future would be put at risk. When you consider this, you begin to realize that if you're keeping something in your life, there has to be a reason that you want it there. The only question is, why? If you're keeping something in your life, there has to be a reason why you want it there. That you want it there. The only question is, why? Some people can't figure out why. They can't seem to motivate themselves enough to create a new business. To facilitate their goal of becoming significantly wealthier. Perhaps not realizing that they have a subconscious belief that to be rich is to be egocentric or disliked. Or, perhaps they actually don't want to be super wealthy. Maybe it's a cover up for wanting to feel secure and taken care of. Or their real desire is to be recognized for their art, and as this feels too unlikely to ever happen, they fall back on a secondary dream that doesn't actually motivate them. Some people say that they want to be successful at any cost, yet they don't want to log the hours of work it would take to get there. Perhaps it is because they understand at some level that being successful doesn't really make you happy nor liked. In fact, the opposite tends to be true. Success usually exposes you to jealousy and scrutiny. Successful people are not loved in the way that we imagine that they would be. They are usually picked apart because envious people need to humanize them in some way. Perhaps instead of being successful, what many really want is just to be loved. And yet, Their ambition for success directly threatens that. See, success, you guys, is not a party. Success is a very lonely, thin, less traveled road, which is why people like Michael Jordan was so loved and so hated all at the same time, because he was great, dang it. And when you perform great, my coach actually just sent me a message saying, don't you back down and don't you stop being great, because it is when you are great that insecure people have a problem with you. And they start to create scenarios about you. So yes, be nice. And yes, be humble. But don't you dare back down, because insecure people have a problem with your success. Woo! My goodness. Some people can't figure out why they keep choosing the wrong relationships. People whose pattern of rejection, abuse, or refusal to commit seem to be consistent. Perhaps they don't realize that they are actually recreating the relationship dynamics they experienced when they were young, because they associate love with loss or abandonment. Perhaps they want to recreate family relationships in which they felt helpless, but to live them again as an adult where they can help the addict, the liar, or the broken person. When it comes to self-sabotaging behaviors, you have to understand that sometimes it's easy to get attached to having problems. Oh my goodness. Being successful can make you less liked. Finding love can make you more vulnerable. Making yourself less attractive can guard you. Playing small allows you to avoid scrutiny. Procrastinating puts you back in a place of comfort. All the ways in which you are self-sabotaging are actually ways that you are feeding a need that you probably do not realize that you have. Overcoming it is not only a matter of learning to understand yourself better, but realizing that your problems are not problems, they are symptoms. You cannot get rid of the coping mechanisms and think that you've solved the problem. So what does self-sabotage look like? Because I know y'all are ready for me to be done, right? I know that y'all ready for me to be done. Because this is like a Whopper. This is like a triple Whopper with cheese. What does self-sabotage look like? It is impossible to say decisively what self-sabotage does or doesn't look like, because certain habits and behaviors that can be healthy for one person can be unhealthy for another in another context. With that said, there are definitely some specific behaviors and patterns that are typically indicative of self-sabotage, and they usually relate to being aware that there's a problem in your life, yet feeling the need to perpetuate it regardless. Here are some of the main signs that you're probably in a cycle of self-sabotage. Y'all ready for this? Resistance is what happens when you have a new project that we need to work on and simply can't bring ourselves to do it. It's when we get into a great new relationship and then keep bailing on plans. It's when we get an amazing idea for our business and then feel tension and anger when it comes to sit down and actually get to work. We often feel resistance in the face of what's going right in our lives, not what's going wrong. When we have a problem to solve, resistance is usually nowhere to be found. But when we have something to enjoy, create, or build, we are tapping into a part of ourselves that is trying to thrive instead of just survive. And the unfamiliarity can be daunting. So how do we resolve this? Would you like to know how to resolve this? I'm glad you asked me. Resistance is your way of slowing down and making sure that it's safe to get attached to something new and important. In other cases, it can also be a warning sign that something isn't quite right, and you might need to step back and regroup. Resistance is not the same thing as procrastination or indifference and shouldn't be treated as such. When we are experiencing resistance, there is always a reason, and we have to pay attention. If we try to force ourselves to perform in the face of resistance, it usually intensifies the feeling as we are strengthening the internal conflict and triggering the fear that's holding us back in the first place. Instead, releasing resistance requires us to refocus. I just said that this morning. Focus. Sometimes, y'all, I will just text people and say, focus already. Instead of releasing resistance, releasing resistance requires us to refocus. We have to get clear on what we want, as well as when and why we want it. We have to identify unconscious beliefs that are preventing us from showing up. And then we have to step back into the work when we feel inspired. Wanting is the entryway to showing up after resistance. Wow, wow, and wow. I'm going to read this one more. Hitting your upper limit. As we discussed before, there is only a certain amount of happiness that most of us will allow ourselves to feel. Gay Hendricks calls this your upper limit. Your upper limit is essentially the amount of good that you're comfortable having in your life. It is your tolerance and threshold for having positive feelings or experiencing positive events. When you begin to surpass your upper limit, you start to unconsciously sabotage what's happening in order to bring yourself back to what's comfortable and familiar. For some people, this manifests physically, often as aches, pains, headaches, or physical tension. For others, it manifests emotionally or resistance, anger, guilt, or fear. It might seem totally counterintuitive, but we are not really wired to be happy. We are wired to be comfortable. And anything that is outside of the realm of comfort feels threatening or scary until we are familiar with it. So how do we resolve this? Hitting your upper limit is really a great sign. It means that you are approaching and surpassing new levels of your life, and that is first and foremost something to congratulate yourself for. The way that you resolve upper limit problem is by slowly acclimating yourself to your new normal. Instead of shocking yourself into big changes, allow yourself to slowly adjust and adapt. By taking it slow, you are allowing yourself to gradually reinstate a new comfort zone around what you want your life to be. Over time, you gradually shift your baseline to a new standard. Let me see something. I'm just trying to see, based on our time, how far we can go. Are you guys enjoying chapter 2 of The Mountain Is You? How many of you are enjoying chapter 2 of The Mountain Is You? All right, chapter 2 is pretty lengthy. So let me see. I'm still turning. Chapter 2 is lengthy. Chapter 2 is going to kick our butts, y'all. Let me see. I'm just trying to, oh yeah. Chapter 2 is quite lengthy. So we are at, I'm going to keep reading because here's the deal. I don't want to go over the review for chapter 2 yet because we still have so much more to read in chapter 2. So it doesn't make sense for us to go over the workbook questions because we're not even We're barely a quarter of the way through chapter 2. All right. So let's talk about uprooting. Uprooting happens when someone finds themselves jumping from relationship to relationship or changing their business website again and again. When they really need to focus on confronting relationship issues when they arise or taking care of the clients that they already have. In uprooting, you are not allowing yourself to blossom. You are only comfortable with the process of sprouting. Woo! Ooh! It might be constantly needing a fresh start, which is often the result of not having healthy ways to deal with stress or struggling with conflict resolution. Uprooting can be a way of diverting attention from the actual problems in your life, as your attention must go toward reestablishing oneself at a new job or in a new town. Ultimately, uprooting means you are always just beginning your new chapter, but never really finishing it. Despite your efforts to keep moving on, you end up more stuck than ever before. So, how do we resolve this? First, you recognize the pattern. One of the primary symptoms of uprooting is not realizing that one is doing it. Therefore, the most important steps is to become aware of what's happening. Trace back your steps over the past few years. How many places have you moved or worked? Then figure out what is driving you away from each new thing that you find. Next, you need to get clear on what you really want. Sometimes uprooting occurs, but we step too quickly toward what we think we want, only to find that we didn't think it through and we don't really want the thing very much. Clarity is key because you're thinking long term now. What would it look like to choose one place to live, then build connections there? What would it look like to work at the same place and move up in your position or build your business? What would it look like to build your business in one place? Remember that healing from an uprooting pattern is not about settling for something that you don't want, nor is it about staying in an unsafe or unhealthy situation because you don't want to move again. It's about getting clear and determine on what's the right path for you and then making a plan for how you can thrive, not just survive. When the moment comes that you would typically flee, confront the discomfort and stay where you are. Figure out why you are uncomfortable getting attached to one thing or another and determine what a healthy attachment would look like for you. Woo! This is so good. So we're going to stop right here. And next week we will start on page 36 at the perfectionism. Perfectionism. And what I love about this book is that not only is it helping us to see what's wrong, but what it's also telling us now, how do we fix it? How do we fix it? And so let me just take a glance at the workbook on chapter 2 to see, is there anything that we can actually look at that we could kind of go over, or let me see. When you habituate yourself to do the things that move your life forward, you call them skills. When they hold your life back, you call them sabotage. They are both essentially the same. And then this kind of goes over the different chapters, a little bit on each chapter. This is like kind of like cliff notes. But what I love at the end is it does teach you to, it's going to teach you to confront the repressed emotions and take action. There's going to be some key takeaways. And we'll be identifying the triggers, telling the story, accepting our emotions, blah, da, 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 right? Chapter 3 is going to be about the triggers. So take a pause. Emotions are often fast and without warning. When you're overcome by emotions, allow yourself a moment to pause and take a few deep breaths before you respond. This can help you to avoid over-the-top reactions. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been this week's episode of book club. And I am so grateful that you made a decision to join us. I know that this was all God who picked this book for us in this season. And I believe that by the time that we get to the end of this book, we aren't going to know who we are. That there's going to be such a difference in our lives and who we are if we embrace and don't get in our feelings about what we're reading and really take a moment to look in that proverbial mirror so that we can identify those areas in our lives that we need to change to become the version of ourselves that we desire to be. So, I want you to be kind to one another, right? As we go into this new week, today is only Monday. I want you to pay it forward to somebody. Bring somebody back here on Monday, especially someone that you know seems like they're stuck in their lives or they're looking to grow and become a better or a newer version of themselves. I want you to remember that we really can get well and wealthy, right? And the more that we spend some time on looking at our own personal character flaws, we can get well, and then that can turn into wealth. I promise you that when I started to invest time into personal development and growth and reading, that is when we began to live life by design and not by default, right? And I want you to know that God loves you. I love you, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. We'll see you next Monday. Good night, and God bless you all.